What is up, you guys? It is Caleb Salvatore
and Nicholas Kohler.
Today we have got Josh Smith and James Michael Smith. They are currently working on a documentary. We're the first podcast they're going to talk about this on, so I'm fucking psyched. For once, I'm not the sexiest man on camera. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. How you guys doing?
Good. He was talking about me, James, not you, by the way.
Okay.
We're doing good. I'm doing good. I'm all right.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us on. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for coming on. So tell us a little bit about your show or about your documentary.
Yeah.
We'll let the visionary genius speak first because I have a vision and our vision matches up really well, but he just has a better accent than me. So
awesome sauce.
This isn't fair because Americans have this idea that if you have a British accent, it just automatically adds 10 IQ points.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much pressure.
Unless it drops in half if it's Scottish.
Oh yeah, it has to be a specific English accent, and it's the BBC thing. There's some horrendous accents in England that you don't want anywhere near any public platform. Hopefully mine's okay though. The documentary Living in Liberty is going to be, I hope, capitalism, a love story, unironically. It's going to be a celebration of the liberty philosophy, but it's also going to be telling a story. So I'm hoping to basically chart the movement where it is now and where it's been from the very beginning. I want it to be aesthetic. So I want it to be beautiful. I don't want it to be dry, just dry talking heads, politics and economic inside baseball. I want it to really evoke the true beauty of the freedom philosophy. Telling a story, for one thing. I think all films should tell a story in some way, and a documentary should document something. And hopefully the story will be about the movement or this idea. And I also want it to be aesthetic. I just don't want it to be a boring talking heads, usual standard BBC documentary. Where I want it to really be beautiful, to reflect the beauty of the liberty philosophy. And we're going to be interviewing, we've got like 1,000 people lined up or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit.
I'm curious, is it going to be like a visual like what kind of influences is it taking? Is it going like a zeitgeist road on it? Or?
So I think this is where me and James are going to work really well together. James is heavily philosophy based.
Mm-hmm.
And while I am as well, I'm an activist in the Libertarian Party here, but I'm also an anarchist, and I've been an anarchist for many, many years. And so I think that being able to showcase it, and what my thoughts for this documentary was to showcase the entire movement in the country and how people basically struggle every day to push a more liberty-based public policy here in the country, whether that be through politics, because there will be party politics in the movie, whether that be through education, institutes like the Mises Institute will have a heavy function in this movie. The Center for a Stateless Society, obviously we have Gary Chartier is going to be in the movie, and so yeah, we're gonna kind of take the the cornucopia of liberty activism and put it in a movie and show the everyday struggles and counterculture that is the liberty movement and really make a statement with this movie. But like James said, it's going to be beautiful, aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be something that resonates with people. We're not just going to sit there and give them an economics lesson for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's going to be something that people want to watch, and I think we can't win the political front with the liberty philosophy until we win the cultural war. And that's what I think is what we're trying to do here.
I definitely think, because I know Caleb, very, very involved with the liberty movement. Formerly. Like, I think personally, there's a very large hunger out there in just everybody for like a different brand of politics. You know what I mean? Like, just, people are really sick of, I think, a lot of the two-party lines and everything. And even
Yeah, absolutely. And the Libertarian Party plays a pivotal role there for people that are leaving. But the thing about the party itself is a lot of people don't even know we exist still, And,
I know.
And people think that as far as as far as things go, that calling for more government is going to end problems that the government creates, and it's just never going to happen that way. And that's why I think it's important to showcase all the forms of activism, not just the party. The party is obviously very important to me. I sit on the national leadership for the National Party, but the agorists are out there, doing counter economics and not paying any money to the government, trying to starve it. The anarchists are educating people left and right. The anarcho-capitalist movement is bigger than I have ever seen it in my entire life. I can only imagine how much bigger it is than 47 years ago or longer, when Murray Rothbard, coined the term. So, it's an all-encompassing movement, and we're going to showcase that, and we're going to showcase the struggle of moving forward libertarian-based philosophy in the United States, and James going to make it gorgeous for everyone to watch.
That's awesome.
So you said you're an anarchist. I just curious, how did you go from, just tell us briefly how you went from being, enlisted in the Navy to becoming a full-blown anarchist? How did that happen?
Sure. Well, the military, I mean, that really started my ascension, say, I was on the USS Constellation during Operation Iraqi Freedom. We were the biggest part of the Shock and Awe campaign. I saw our aircraft leaving, the deck all day long full of ordnance and come back empty and reload and go back and do it all day long for several days. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I don't think this is a good thing. I joined the military right after 9/11. I wanted to go and protect my country, and all of a sudden I'm in the Gulf attacking Iraq, and I'm like, Iraq didn't do 9/11. It was like, it was like it was like Sunday Nationals or something. What from Afghanistan? What are we doing here? And so I think that really started that climb for me. And then Ron Paul was a big part of it, and that's someone else that we're trying to get in the movie. Ron Paul came around 2008. I got out of the military sometime around 2005, and I was already really jaded on the political process. I was really jaded with the Republicans and Democrats. Neither one of them were serving my interests. I didn't want to give the government my money. I didn't want to continue to go to wars. I didn't want them to continue to regulate these little mom and pop shops that, made my city great once out of the market. And I found Ron Paul. Ron Paul was speaking to who I am and really opened my eyes to the world. And then I read Murray Rothbard, and it was all over after that. I read for a New Liberty, and I started really thinking about what the state is and what they accomplish. And it's at some point you get to a point in your life where it's just like the only thing they do is continue to grow themselves. That's all they want to do.
I think that's really interesting, like saying you is as an anarchist, because, a lot of the common people's mind out there, their perception of anarchists is like the
burning shit down.
Yeah, the Antifa, Liberty Spikes, like skater dudes or something. Right. Like there's not a lot of people out there, I think, in the intellectual sphere that, can stand a little like
without Molotov cocktails.
Right. Yeah. Well, they feel like they can't defend their points. At least the common people.
Well, I hope that this movie, one of the things that I want this movie to do is show that that's not necessarily the truth. That anarchism is an idea. It's an idea that we know better how to run our lives than a centralized monopoly on violence. And so, that's one of the things that I think this documentary will do really well, is to show that we don't need the daddy and mommy state to run our lives. We can do it just fine without them, and in fact probably more efficiently for a much cheaper price. And Domino's can build the roads. So
yeah, really.
Domino's. They do a better job than my city does. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, seriously. Like Omaha right now, there's local city politics around here. There's a lot of talk about how our old mayor just decided to use crappy concrete for all the streets, and now we're paying the price for it right now.
Again.
So,
and again.
Yes. Yeah. So, and for this movie, like art style, I really want to. How is it like going to progress the story? Is it going to start off from like beginning of the movement? Like, I honestly am really interested in it because I have no idea like very much about it at all, and I think that's very similar to most people out there.
Did you guys get the opportunity to watch the teaser that James put together?
I did, yeah. I watched it.
Yeah, I think that's similar, right, James? It's kind of that showcasing those bad policies. And
yeah, I think so. So we're still kind of forming these ideas in terms of a narrative structure. And as I said before, I do want it to be a narrative, like a beginning, middle, and end. But I think it starts with the. But I think it should start with the present. So, because in terms of just general politics, not just the liberty movement, which seems all fractured and chaotic at the moment, it'll kind of give us some context for what the problem we're dealing with at the moment. And then go back to the beginning of this movement and introduce the philosophy again and refresh it in our minds. Try and reignite for libertarians that initial spark that got us into the movement to begin with. Because I think what's happened is that with the rise of the identity politics and factions going this way and that, we've kind of had a bit of an existential crisis in the liberty movement. And I would like to try and bring back our foundations. And there's a brilliant video from years and years ago called The Philosophy of Liberty. And it was a short, very simple animation explaining our rights and what we have the right to do or not do, how my right to swing my fist ends at your nose, essentially, like really getting back to basics. But I would like to kind of do that, revive it for today, and then move on, and then we can get to the interviews, provide some context for all of that, and see where we're going in the future.
Sweet.
What would you say is, like, right now, specifically, like, biggest issue that like you would see with like the modern, like how things are kind of running, like what the direction that we're going, where it really, because it felt like how you had said before, like I think a really big issue right now, especially in the political discussion, is there's just so many echo chambers forming out there, whether it's online and in person. I mean, there's just not the discourse between the different ideas. So, like, specifically, like, what do you think is like the biggest issue with kind of how the political sphere is, right, or the political?
If we're talking about right now, the identity politics thing is very frustrating because all of a sudden we're encouraged to have an opinion about a razor blade commercial. When really about the most fundamental aspects of the political system, like and the answer to the identity politics thing is liberty. We do have the answer for this, because if people are left to their own devices and our rights are respected, then none of these things actually matter. It's when the state is so massive and it has such a massive authority over our lives that these cultural questions become a matter of life and death, and everybody's talking about the sake of Western civilization and all that.
Well, that's what I always. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, it's fine.
So that's what I always tell people is whenever you see these big, the Covington Catholic kids or the, like the Gillette razor blade. What's the one going on right now that everyone's freaking out about?
It's the Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, that guy. So whenever you see shit like that, that's all over the news. Google words like Syria, Afghanistan, because chances are there's something that happened over there that they're trying to cover up to keep the war machine churning. And it's almost every time, like clockwork, there's some shit went down in one of those countries that would piss people the fuck off. But we're getting mad about an actor that may or may not have paid people to beat him up.
Although I really feel like that specific case is very, like, it's important that people know about that.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw a very good meme summarized the situation. It seems like what happened there is like an example of what happened when the demand for racism is higher than the production.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, because I mean, like I think this instance is a really good case of like where people really need to pay attention to stuff and not just believe things at face value, like do a little bit of investigation.
Right.
Like I think
people don't do that.
I think that how some of the journalism outputs out there handled that, not maybe at first, but how they kind of continued to pour into it. That was like some real journalism with that, like pouring in and figuring out that the two guys were like extras on the show, like they knew each other and everything. And I mean,
it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, and it's to segue from what James is saying, and I agree that that's a huge problem because identity politics in America has splintered us into so many small collective groups that we've now become this tribalistic, chest-beating team sport country where it doesn't matter if your side's done wrong, you're going to defend it. And it doesn't matter if the other side's done right, you're going to talk shit about it. And so I think that the libertarian philosophy, like he said, is really good at combating this stuff by making sure that everyone's rights are respected and people can get on with their lives how they see fit. But right now, like I said, it's this tribalistic team sport, like chest beating thing where we have to win at all costs. And libertarians over here like, hey man, why don't you guys all just have your rights, and just like enjoy your life and not worry about this constant fight.
It's almost painfully simple. What do
you think you guys could concede as like some of the weaker points? Because like I know a lot of libertarian identifying people out there. And I think one good thing that a lot of like libertarians will do is they'll be like, yeah, like, we can at least say that maybe this isn't good because of
government. Necessary. Yeah. Basically, do you guys see any or that there's any necessity for any government?
Yeah.
Personally, no.
At least you're honest.
But I think it's important that we know our audience, and I think that the worst part about the libertarian philosophy and trying to spread the libertarian philosophy is libertarians. We're really good at telling you you're wrong and why you're wrong, but we're not great at giving utilitarian solutions to how to fix the problem. Mm-hmm. And I think, that, like I said, getting into the culture war and actually showing people that this philosophy will enrich their lives, it will make it better, is going to help. And I think that libertarians have been historically really bad at doing that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that having that voice in there of the small to little to no government, that needs to be in political discourse, because it's if anything, it's just going to stop it from going extremely into one way. Like, you need to have those ideas in the churn,
Well, how about you, James? How much government do you think should exist?
Oh, big old goose egg. I'm pushing the Rothbard button now.
Big bad zero.
I'm an anarchist, but I kind of shoot at it from I'd like to treat every government program like the post office, right? Where in America, there used to only be one mail carrier, and it was the United States Postal Service. And what we did was we opened the market for competition, and we found that other carriers could more efficiently deliver your mail for a much cheaper price. I mean, good God, Amazon's talking about delivering things with drones to your front door.
Awesome.
But instead of realizing that that's not a needed governmental institution, the government decided that, we'll keep the United States Postal Service, and we'll still charge you to send certain things that we don't want you to send for in these private businesses, and so. I would like to treat it that way. Start rolling back these programs. If I was to be the royal decree, right? Like the guy who was going to change everything, that's how I would handle it. Just because I understand people have very real fears, and we need to address those very real fears as libertarians and show them that there's a better way. And I think that's a good way to go about it. But don't get me wrong. I dream about hitting the Rothbard button myself.
Well, I think a really big fear, maybe like modern right now, people might have, like a case of like Amazon. Like, it really does kind of seem like they're monopolizing some of the stuff about it. Like, I mean, I'm all for free competition, but I mean, how does a business like compete with Amazon right now?
Amazon's buying up the government as part of their problem.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Like, that's cronyism at its finest, right?
In what way are they buying up the government?
What's up?
In what way are they buying up the government?
There's some way. It's like I'm pretty sure the post office is paying them to deliver shit or something.
Well, they get subsidies, so they get a tax subsidy. So, but we're not paying that. They're just paying less taxes, and I'm all for tax cuts for everything.
Okay. So I think the main thing that puts people off, kind of like you were saying, is when they hear the libertarian philosophy of abolish everything, they think, what the fuck, you want to take my kid's school away? I think public schools, more than roads or military, I think that's what scares people the most, is they're so used to the public schools that they just get terrified.
One of the main objectives for me with this documentary is to construct and present a positive vision of liberty, because I think libertarians come across as that we're very negative in the fact that we're anti-government, we're small government, and we want to slash regulations and cut government programs. But that's missing the other half of the coin, which is what society will look like. What does the free society look like? And that's amazing. And we don't do enough to show people that. And it's not about the fact. The reason why we want to cut education is so we can produce an amazing education system. It would just look completely different. It would be decentralized. It would definitely in the private sector. There would be innovation. There would be competition. It'd be amazing. We don't do enough to just point that out.
It would be like interesting to see. Like, imagine education being all like privatized.
It would be cool to see.
It's I wonder if they could maybe come to some kind of agreement, maybe as to like how kind of they did their guidelines, as to maybe not necessarily how.
Kind of like how doctors have their code.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, they've already kind of, they've kind of started that with charter schools. I actually just had a big argument about charter schools today. Well, that's not my, charter school is probably not my ideal educational system. I do think that charter schools are allowed to compete.
We took a quick break here. What we were talking about here was Gary Johnson. I think what really kind of, and Caleb made it a good word for it, was like the beginning of the end, was that what is Aleppo thing for Gary Johnson. Because I really like Gary Johnson in that election. But it seems like he kind of got treated unfair, but I mean, not a whole heart, like 100% got treated unfair, but like
he walked into a lot of his own problems.
Yeah. I think he ran a much better campaign in 2012. To be honest with you, 2016 was very lackluster compared to 2012 for Gary Johnson, and I think that Bill Weld had a lot to do with that. Bill Weld was very lackluster, and libertarians didn't really rally behind that ticket, like say the Ron Paul in 2008. Every libertarian in the country went and rallied around Ron Paul in 2008,
and not in the country as well.
Yeah. And the thing about it was that's the same year the Libertarian Party ran, like Bob Barr.
Right.
Ron Paul could probably run again in 2020 and
he might be too old, man.
You think? I mean, fucking Bernie's running. He's like a mummy.
Right. Ron Paul's done more for the liberty movement in the United States and around the world than probably any singular figure that hasn't taught philosophy, I guess. But
I think Ron Paul's a very powerful player in just right-leaning politics in general. Like,
well, you'd be hard pressed, and I wouldn't necessarily call it right-leaning politics. I mean, it's libertarian philosophy brought to the political sphere, and he was really good at telling people things that they weren't used to hearing. He was the one that stood up on stage while he was debating Rudy Giuliani and talked about blowback and how we're creating terrorists. And, nobody had ever gotten up on stage and said something like that. But let the man rest. He's done so much, and he's still waking people up left and right. I mean, Ron Paul still does his Ron Paul report and wakes people up, and he's great. But
I remember in the 2012 primary for the Republican Party, I can remember how shocked everyone was in that fucking room full of Republicans to see this guy come on stage and say we should legalize heroin. I think that was like, this is a party of social conservative. I mean, at this point, if you smoked a joint, you were the devil in the Republican Party. And this guy's up here, fuck weed, man. Let's legalize heroin.
I think we're right on the like sunrise of being able to see we just not legalized nationwide.
I think even Trump thinks it should be legal.
Yeah, you see Elon Musk on fucking the internet.
I don't want it legal.
No,
I want it decriminalized, and that's the big problem with the weed legalization here is in America they make things illegal if they don't know how to tax them. Period. Right. Plain and simple. And so saying that weed is now legal, but the government is going to tax it, and if I walk down to the street corner and sell it to my friend on the street corner, I'm going to go to jail. That's not legalizing something. I won't consider weed legalized until I can walk in front of the police station and sell a dime bag to my friend without being arrested. It's, and it's same could be said for just about everything. You can't sell lemonade on the street corner here in the United States without, getting a fine. So lemonade's not legal.
There was that story where, like a little while ago,
every year, man, little kids get busted.
Yeah, because some soccer mom calls the police on them and gets it busted. Yeah, that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
I can't cope with people like that.
Yeah.
What about like heroin though? Like back to that, like heroin, cocaine.
What about heroin though, yo? What about heroin?
Well, I mean, what I'm going to do after this podcast is my business and mine only.
Heroin is horrible. It's a horrible drug. It addicts you and it makes you dependent on something. But when you put it in your body, you're not hurting anybody but yourself. And if you're not creating a victim, then there's no reason that something should land you in a rape cage for a certain amount of time and take your freedom and rights from you.
So just there, and I'm not trying to argue. I'm just throwing questions that other people would ask. So if I go out and I sell heroin to a 12-year-old, I mean, what happens to me in this ideal society?
James, you want to take that one? You study the poly law a lot more than I do, don't you?
I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just.
How old are you? And you're trying to get? Sorry, how old are you? And trying to get heroin?
A 12-year-old.
Your 12-year-old failed you.
If I sell to a 12-year-old, if I sell heroin to a 12-year-old.
Oh, I see. Okay, if you sell a 12-year-old heroin, okay. I think the thing in an anarchist society, there wouldn't exist in a kind of vacuum. It wouldn't be like a vacuum of law. There would be the rule of law. So you would exist in a kind of community in which you would agree to certain rules. Now, there are, in Spain, my parents used to have a house, and it was in this kind of complex of about 120 houses up in the mountains. And they had their own rules and laws, essentially, for that little patch of land. And they had, in essence, it was a fee, but you could say it's kind of like a tax. Right. But the thing is, you could leave if you want to. You're not beholden to this. So it's not the same as a state.
You're not going to get locked in a cage.
No, exactly.
Right.
And let's say there was no threat of force from the Spanish police to for anything in that little commune, so to speak. I can pretty much promise you that the people who organize these things would not be permitting anybody selling 12-year-olds heroin. Now, technically speaking, it wouldn't be illegal, technically speaking, but it would never happen. So
I think that's what a lot of people that use this argument don't understand is not having a state doesn't mean there's going to be no rules, right? It just means there's no rulers. And so I don't know a community anywhere that I've ever lived that would stand by and watch a drug dealer sell a 12-year-old heroin and not have an issue with that and not make sure that those societal norms are followed. And so I don't see that, I don't see that being some huge widespread issue where people are selling heroin to 12-year-olds.
No,
it might happen.
Maybe not heroin, because that's like an extreme case, but maybe say like marijuana alcohol to like 16.
You guys weren't smoking pot when you were 16? What the hell?
No comment.
Yeah, but there also wasn't huge marijuana companies like, I don't know, Marlboro, who's trying to get in this, marijuana business, trying to, be on like radio or something, telling you, hey man, marijuana makes you cool.
Well, so, and here's the thing, Marlboro's going to get into the marijuana business because they're one of the, in the sin department, they are, they are one of the biggest government lobbyists in the country. I mean, Philip Morris literally went out of their way to make sure that growing tobacco was illegal. Now, you can smoke tobacco, you can buy tobacco, you can't grow tobacco. In fact, if you live in Virginia and don't grow tobacco, the state will give you money. It's a very strange situation, but they lobbied the government to make sure that they could have, a monopoly in their area on that plant. And that's what happens when the government legalizes something and puts their hands into it. They create those, you were talking about monopolies earlier. They create those monopolies. They give give people the right to have those monopolies, and they take the power away from the individual. It's a terrible thing.
Well, that's what I mean. When you look at people complaining about drug prices being so high, and that's why we need socialism or whatever, that's not like most of those drug prices are so high because the government's given them the fucking monopoly on it. They say anyone who makes a copy of this drug is going to go to jail.
Yeah, they'll say in hospitals, in this state, you can only give them this kind of
right. They patent it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. How's your healthcare, James, over there in Europe? It's pretty socialized, right?
Well, the thing is with there's very many misconceptions with healthcare across the board. It's not completely socialized, so it's not completely like the private companies are involved in the NHS, but but yes, the government has a heavy involvement. It has. The thing about the NHS is that it's kind of become the state religion. So if you criticize it in any way whatsoever, then you get very bad looks, and maybe a finger will come out and they'll wag it at you, and it's very scary.
That's a very stark contrast to America, where I think the best example of a hard, wholly socialized healthcare system, the Veterans Affairs, VA. I mean, man, there's people as jobs is to just go out there and publicly make fun of the VA and publicly, like if you're not making fun of the VA, you're doing it wrong in America. Which VA is just like for you, James. It's like the healthcare system for veterans.
Are you American planning right now?
Yeah.
Thanks. And you guys have presidents and not prime ministers, right? I'm just trying to get my head around this.
Yes.
And we play football with our hands.
Yeah.
James has been to the U.S. and even eaten Taco Bell. We had this conversation earlier.
Yes.
That's the
best example of American cuisine, right there.
Best part of America.
So the plan is that when we make this movie, James is going to fly out here and essentially live here for as long as his visa will allow him to, while we make the movie. And so, I don't know if you guys know this, but we do have a Kickstarter that's up now. We're trying to raise money, $100,000 to make this film, which is in the realm of films, it's not a lot of money.
It's nothing for a film.
Movie. Yeah, and
so, link to that, and we'll
link. Yeah, absolutely. We love to put that out. But and I told James, I think our first day we raised just a little over $300, and James said, "Well, our Taco Bell budget's covered."
Yeah. What state did you go to when you came to America, James? Or like how many states have you been to or areas?
I'm such a basic British tourist. So I've been to Florida, so I've been to Disneyland, and I've been to New York. So I haven't really seen America.
I've never been to those.
I've been to New York. New York.
Disneyland is not in Florida, first of all. Disneyland is in Los Angeles or Anaheim, California.
Yeah.
Disney World is in Florida.
Excuse me. I beg your pardon. Disney World.
I get them confused too. I don't even worry about it, man.
Yeah, and it's funny, New York. I mean, like New York City. You went to the like Manhattan or something when you went there?
Yes, Manhattan.
That place is like more foreigners than it is America. It's like a better example of a foreign city.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the real America and putting on about 6 stone.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is
never went and got mugged in Cleveland, huh?
Come out to Nebraska, man. I'll take you cow tipping.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably so when we're filming, we'll probably be at not this upcoming unconvention, but the following one will be there filming because that's a big, there'll be a ton of Liberty people there. Just like last year, it was the inaugural year, and there was already Cliff Maloney and Ron Paul and me and Larry Sharp. I had to throw me in there. Did you catch that? Dr. Kyle Varner and all these great libertarian people, and so I can only imagine what it's going to be this coming year and the year after.
Dr. Kyle Varner is brilliant. I interviewed him for my show. He's amazing.
He's amazing guy. His speeches are really great. He's extremely intelligent when it comes to libertarian healthcare because he's a doctor, and he's really good at waking people up to how. What is it? The white coat cartel, he calls it. He's actually making a book or his book's not out yet. Is it out? No, it's not out.
It's soon.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle's interesting because he gets most of his healthcare done in Mexico.
His own private healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's where he goes to get his stuff.
Yeah, it's cash based. He goes down there and he gets really good healthcare and he gets to pay cash for it, and it's cheap.
So I can kind of add another side to that. We used to live down in El Paso, which is a border town to one of the biggest cities in Mexico, Juarez. And Juarez was like, used to be the most dangerous city in the world 5-6 years ago. My wife went down there originally to go get her braces done when she was younger. And man, those were some janky ass braces she got. Yeah. I mean, it only cost her like, $40.
I guess it depends where you go.
Yeah.
Did it work? Did the braces work?
No, she eventually had to get the braces like redone here in America. And I think that might be kind of a problem with them is like, you go down to Mexico, you don't know what you're going to get. You're fucking rolling that crap.
And that's with anything, man. Not just with healthcare. You put your dick in some girls in Mexico, you don't know what you're going to come home with.
That's the same.
I wouldn't know.
No, I wouldn't get it up to anything like that. No.
So, what are the odds Bill Weld shows up in your film?
Very, 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 very slim.
And we're not looking to put people to sleep.
Very slim. Very slim. Mr. Weld, I wish him luck in the Republican Party.
They're perfect for each other. Him and the Republican Party.
Well, I mean, as much as you don't like him, you got to admit he'd be better than Trump, right?
On some issues. And
and not others. Yeah.
His good friend Hillary Clinton, he's a big time hawk. He sat on a board in a think tank that actually helped send more American troops to war. He called for common sense gun laws. There are no common sense gun laws. He's not going to be in our movie. We'll just say that right away. Unless Bill goes on right now and buys the $5,000 rewards tier that gets you in the movie, then
we might refer to him if we're talking generally speaking about the Libertarian Party and some people's problems with who gets put forward to nomination.
He may make a cameo from one of the events we're at or something, with a quick pass by with the camera, but. We'll make sure and get his consent first before we put those in there.
So you were talking about him having some better points at Trump. I mean, one point I do believe that Trump makes that has some merit, and I think maybe not quite as extreme as libertarians would think about it, but like the fact that we basically are Europe's military. Like we make Europe, or we don't make military, or Europe's like pay for NATO at all. And Trump was like really one of the first politicians who kind of put that up.
Europe. I mean, NATO's got quite a world countries in them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly Europe, though NATO is. So
right. We've got military bases everywhere, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
But I mean, like Europe,
we have military bases in 123 countries around the world. Actually,
fucking crazy.
Like a lot of the European countries are able to do these social programs
because
they don't have to spend it on military. Like Sweden doesn't have to have a military because we are their military.
Sweden's also got a population that's smaller than the size of Texas, and a welfare demand that's not even a fraction of what we have here in the United States. And
like, imagine if they had to be.
And they're still propped up by capitalism. They're still not doing well. So,
they're higher up on the list on the Economic Freedom Index.
Imagine if they had to fund like their own, like seriously fund a military, because I mean they're right there by Russia, and like I mean Ukraine can show Russia likes to land grab. So, Ukraine's not a NATO country, but still, like imagine if Sweden like had to worry about that, or what there would be in as a state in the country.
I always love how the people on the far left point to how we should be more like countries like Sweden and Denmark. I'm like, those countries are like 93% white. So what are you getting at?
Well, we all know that the left is racist anyway. So,
well, I mean, so a lot of people. I remember people were accusing you guys of because you're part of the whole Mises thing, right?
Yeah, I was at the Mises caucus at the ground level, and I was their first endorsed candidate for my chair campaign for the Libertarian National Committee, and I helped do a lot of recruiting for the meeting.
Can you explain to some of the people what that is?
Yeah, we have a diverse audience. It's not really political, so yeah.
Yeah, so in political parties, sometimes a group of people will get together that have an agenda they'd like to see that party push, and so what happens is they create these things called caucuses to get their agenda passed, and they recruit for their causes. And for the Mises Caucus, one of the big things for us is the Austrian economics. I mean, to us that's the foundation of libertarian philosophy is Austrian economics. From teachers like Rothbard and the likes, and so we kind of rally around that Austrian theory, and we have a set of rules that we follow. You know, we appreciate decorum when we're talking about libertarian philosophy. We don't want to, you know, call names and do stupid things like that. We don't get involved in identity politics whatsoever. It's just not something that we think is helpful for the libertarian movement. And then we rally around Austrian economics, and so that's an agenda we've been pushing. And the Mises Caucus is now the biggest official caucus in the Libertarian Party. It is probably the most organized, with at least 43 states that have state teams as well. We have the power now to help candidates around the country. We're filing currently as a hybrid PAC, so we can be a super PAC and a regular PAC, give money to candidates, do in-kind donations such as signs and helping with volunteering and stuff. And so we're essentially creating a wing of the Libertarian Party that we believe to be the libertarian wing of the Libertarian Party. So,
and that's really big, because like local elections and everything. I mean, if we could see more, libertarian parties, and just third party people in general in local politics and getting those voices out there, that only helps.
Right. Sure. Well, that's where we're going to make the biggest difference as party politics guys. You know, James isn't much for the party politics, but right. I justify it as a defensive action, and I think that the good thing about the Mises Caucus is that we're recruiting candidates who don't want to get into achieve power. They want to get into relinquish power, and so as a defensive voting mechanism, I believe that's that is okay for me to do, is to get people into positions to relinquish power and take away some of that monopolization on force.
Could I just qualify my stance on political action? Is probably because I can afford not to be interested in party politics because I'm British, and in terms of libertarian movement in Britain, there's about like 6 guys. And, so,
hey, that was all the Boston Tea Party was, or is that still a soft spot for you guys?
Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna be hearing about that one later.
That's cool.
I'm just fucking with you, man.
So I've always been about the philosophy. So the party politics thing frustrates me to no end, and because I have no real attachment to skin in the game regarding what actually happens about who gets elected in the United States. It doesn't really matter to me who does. So that's why I'm not as interested in political action. But obviously I'm friends with Joshua, who's very active in all that kind of thing. I'm friends with loads of people in the LP and other people who are working in other parties. So I have no problem with it. Really, it's just not my forte. So
James, I'm curious as to how
it's not his cup of tea.
How is the liberty? How is that kind of sphere over in some of the different European countries? Like I know you said that in England it's like 6 people, but like I mean over in like maybe Germany, France, some of the other power players really over in Europe. I
was being somewhat facetious with there's few self-described libertarians because it's not really a thing over here, because it's kind of the idea that we're talking about is kind of an American invention, especially in its more radical form. So there probably is like 6 ANCAPs in all of England. That said, there are quite a few classical liberals, because after all, we pretty much invented classical liberalism. So there's still that intellectual tradition here. So there are some in the Conservative Party and other parties as well. Jacob Rees-Mogg is a pretty good one as well. Not so good on some issues, but free markets, individual rights, the rule of law, the framework for libertarianism, if it's not the fully fleshed out philosophy. As far as other countries, I don't really know. I reckon it's very small, as it is in the United States. Everything's been polarized to this. You're either borderline commie, crazy SJW type, or
let's be real, they're nationalist.
Or a nationalist, you said?
or nationalists, yes. There's been a growing nationalist movement in many European countries that is anti-EU, which is a good thing.
I don't hear enough people talk about the yellow vest stuff going on over there in France, because I mean, media outlets don't cover it here, really.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say I'm an expert on that either, but I would say it's probably very broad, and it's not. I think certain libertarians were kind of jumping onto that, saying, "Hey, isn't this awesome?" But they're not exactly ideologically even centered. I think they're just kind of really frustrated with the way things are going. Just in general, a deep-seated resentment against the political class, a sense that the elites aren't working for us, the regular people. And this manifests itself in many different ways. It can be in radical leftism, it can be in nationalism, or it can be in libertarianism. And I would like to kind of shift it that way because that's obviously the best one.
Right. So, Josh, I know you've had a lot of people. I mean, when you ran for chair in the Libertarian Party, I hate to switch the subject like that, but you had a lot of people borderline slander your name. And I will admire how you kept your cool as well as you did. How did you do it without just, I mean, did you do yoga or like, because I would have freaked the fuck out.
I had $700 bar tabs everywhere I went, bro. Didn't you know? How do you think I handled it? No, I understand that politics is a dirty game, man. And my own party is no stranger to that as well. It was probably the most polarizing intra-party race of the history of the party in 47 years. Nicholas Sarwark is heavily looked at as like a champion for the party and kind of like a hero to the party. And so when a no-name figure that created a publication with some friends that had probably at the time, 10,000 followers or something, decided to challenge the crown, there was a lot of people who were really mad at me. And, they had help from people in my personal life that don't like me very much, and so it is what it is. I just kind of, I understood that I was on a ride that I never thought I'd be on. I traveled to 26 states. I went to 20 something state conventions and I keynoted behind Ron Paul at the Unconvention. I mean, the whole thing was a magical dream for me, and right. So I kept, I just kept my head up and kept chugging along because I had a vision and I had an agenda, and I still believe that the plans that I had were the right plans for the Libertarian Party, and maybe someday they'll give me the reins and we can see if those plans work or not. But I just it was hard, I'd wake up every morning and wonder who I was going to be today, because I had been called a white nationalist and a deadbeat dad and an alcoholic and a domestic abuser, and I mean everything that you could use to try to hurt somebody had been thrown at me. And so it was always an interesting morning, with my coffee, going through Facebook to see who had tagged me and what I had done this time. And was it going to be about a motivational page I started, 2 or 3 years prior, where I was trying to help people with mental illness, and were they going to use that against me? And yeah, I mean, it was just it was interesting, but the good far outweighed the bad. I got to make all kinds of wonderful contacts. I got to hang out with Larry Sharp multiple times and become good friends with him, and Cliff Maloney, and I got to meet Ron Paul in person for the first time. And, it just kind of, I was floating on clouds the whole time anyways. I never expected to get as far as I had. We took almost 24% of the vote at the national convention. It would have been really, really hard for someone with fake stories to bring me down at the time. So, nice. Yeah, do
you guys in your guys' film, because I guess I should start the question as, do you think as the idea of liberty, like the libertarian, those ideals, smaller government to no government, more privatization, as those ideas spread to people and this movement gets bigger, do you think that's going to be an issue going forward that could get worse between, I don't want to say just the party, I don't want to drive James crazy over there, but
the slander?
Just the dirty politics.
Oh, no doubt. I'm not even campaigning right now, and people are still slandering my name. It's just funny. It's part of it. I mean, James. I think James has been somewhat lucky because you kind of fly under that radar a little bit.
Nobody blocks me. Nobody has beefs against me. I feel like I'm doing something wrong because I don't have any enemies.
Well, I'll tell you what. Have you ever heard of Sam Coppinger?
Oh, he's very.
Me and Sam. Oh my god, I love Sam.
You should go call him a boomer on Facebook and see what happens.
Oh, we argue all the time. It's fine. but we're friends on Facebook. So
Go back.
I can't even piss off Sam.
Yeah.
What's that?
He pisses me off.
James is a much more friendlier human than I am, I think.
Too nice. That's your problem. Well, no, we need nice people in the world. We can't all be assholes.
I'm an asshole, man. Come on.
Oh, no, I'm talking about myself more than anything. Zach can attest I'm an asshole, but
I'm pretty bullheaded. I'm pretty stubborn, and I think that when those attacks started during my chair campaign, that people thought I was going to tuck tail and run away, and that they would not have to worry about me anymore. But here it is, well over a year later, and they still got to deal with me. In fact, I made it onto the LNC, and now they have to deal with me in national leadership. And it's really funny, that they tried. I mean, they tried with all their might to try and get me to run away from that campaign, and I just kept my head up and kept going.
But once again, I'm going to irk James off here, but I know the 2020, the elections are going to be here faster than we know. Right. And I really, really hope to see liberty ideals get out there more, because I think they were just started nationwide. And I mean, they were really making a big ripple, I think, in this last election. Right. And what do you guys think, future wise? Do you, next couple of years, do you guys see anything on the horizon, or see?
I think the Libertarian Party can break the 5% barrier needed to get us into the debates during the presidential election with the right candidate.
Who do you think that is?
I think someone like Justin Amash or Patrick Byrne would be really good, and I've heard talks of both possibly running for the Libertarian nomination, and so. If both those guys got on stage at our national convention and debated each other, and we had to pick between one of them, I think the Libertarian Party is going to be doing real good.
You think Larry Sharpe maybe, or no?
I think Larry is going to be a wonderful vice presidential nominee in 2020 is what I believe, and I hope so. And I think an Amash Sharpe ticket or a Byrne Sharpe ticket would be absolutely phenomenal for the Libertarian Party. I think those people can travel the country, have the connections and the money and the visibility to get that 5% and get in those national debates and actually put libertarian philosophy at the forefront in the national news media.
So are you going to make a run for chair again?
There's been talks about it. I stated after I lost that I wouldn't run again in 2020 unless there was enough support built. I know that currently there is a small movement to draft Joshua Smith in 2020 for LNC chair. So there's a possibility. I'm not going to take it off the table. I may, but we're going to be so busy filming this movie through 2020 as well. And I am running for chair of California currently for the California State Party. So.
Are you guys going to cover some of the local elections in the film, or planning to anyway?
James and I are going to travel around and literally videotape everything, including us eating Taco Bell, and then we're going to make the best libertarian documentary ever made in the world. And I've talked about it on social media quite a bit, but we have the opportunity to get on the streaming services with this. I have a small in with some streaming services.
Knows people.
And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a libertarian that runs the Sundance thing. That's his thing. And so we're gonna try to get into Sundance. We're gonna try and get into Cannes. We're gonna do everything we can to get this thing in the mainstream media, because it'll be the first documentary of its kind to showcase libertarian activism in the United States that makes it into the mainstream and starts that. It only takes a spark to ignite a flame. And I think that getting in there and really taking a hold of the narrative in the cultural war is where we're going to start making a big difference long before we ever have a president that is elected that has real libertarian leanings.
When you guys have said you're going to be traveling around, is there any places you guys are kind of apprehensive or anxious a little bit to get into?
I'm anxious to get to Auburn, and because I talked personally to Jeff Deist, who is a great guy, and he's the president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute. And he said that he would love for us to come and film an event there. So we'd be around, people like Walter Block and probably Hoppe and probably, Tom Woods and Jeff Dice. And so we'd be getting all these really good interviews.
Oh, I'm so excited for that. It's going to be my dream.
Is there Alabama? James is going to have a blast in Alabama.
It's going to be cool to get those names.
You're white. You'll be all right.
It's going to be cool to get those names out there to a wider audience, because you're going to be talking, like, say us in Omaha, you're going to talk to just average guy listening to here, and they're going to say, there's something big going on in Auburn, Alabama. What's going on there?
And that's what's cool is we don't have a huge audience on this show, but we're not a political show, so it's very diverse. So the fact you guys are, maybe you're only talking to 60 people, but you're talking to 45 of them have no idea who these people are, so they're going to go Google it. So that's
sweet. And if those 60 people could all donate, $100 to the Kickstarter. By the way, $100. What was the $100 tier?
I can't remember. You put them together.
Okay, $200 tier. You get a shout out in the credits of the movie.
Nice.
So, if all 60 of those people put $200, we'd be looking pretty good. We'd be looking pretty good.
Good luck. They won't even buy my shit.
What's that, Jay?
At the very least, share the Kickstarter. Donate what you can. And if you're new to these ideas, check out Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt and The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
I was actually curious about that, James. James, with I want to know what you would recommend to somebody who's interested in the ideas. Yeah. What should they get into, or what should they read? What should they watch?
Their pay stub.
People need somebody to put the ideas into words for them that they can sleep on.
Those two books I mentioned were the key for me, and I can only say what was good for me. And I've heard people coming to the movement from all different kinds of places and reading really dense economic texts, or reading 19th century anarchist literature. It's very diverse where people come from, which I think is actually a testament to the truth of these ideas, that people from all different kinds of backgrounds can come to this idea and fall in love with it. That said,
there really isn't like a documentary you can watch. Well, obviously you guys are making it now, but
there will be.
Yeah, there's not really.
There will be.
Go watch this, man. It's going to really share the libertarian ideals and everything, of the word stuff. So that's really cool.
There's nothing, the Alex Jones movies that got me into the 9/11 conspiracy. No, I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah. Alex Jones was one of the key things. I think I heard of Ron Paul the first time after listening to Alex Jones. So don't knock it. But he's gone completely off the rails at this point. So
Alex Jones 15 years ago wasn't as bad as Alex Jones. Right? Alex Jones 3 years ago wasn't as bad as Alex Jones right now.
Yeah, Alex Jones was in his prime, 2016, man. He was really opening some people's eyes up to some of the bullshit going on in left-wing politics.
But his drinking, I really do think his drinking's played a huge part. I've heard people that know him personally that he sits there and just gets drunk for 4 or 5 hours every episode on the show.
And then tries to start fights with Joe Rogan. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Who do you think would win, honestly?
Joe Rogan would beat the shit out of him. The guy literally trains MMA 3 hours a day, every day for the last 3 years, dude. He would beat the shit out of Alex Jones.
I watch Larry
Even the male vitality won't be able to make us get there.
There's not enough gay frog juice in the world.
I watched Larry Sharp on Joe, and I think we were wondering about that. I didn't realize Larry Sharp is a kick-ass, physically a kick-ass guy.
He's in really good shape. He was a Marine, Marines relatively staying in good shape for quite some time after they get out. But he takes really good care of his health too, man. Because he like last year, we met up at several places, Connecticut, Omaha, and I was eating like shit while I was traveling because I was really excited because I've gone to a bunch of places I've never been and trying the regional food everywhere I went. I was in Connecticut. I had to have a lobster roll just doused in melted butter and he's like, man, you gotta stop eating like that. It's not good for you. And I'm like blowing up. I think I gained 20 pounds during my campaign. And I'm like, Larry, how do you keep losing weight? He's like, I don't eat like you. I'm like, I don't get it. But yeah, because he doesn't, he doesn't eat sugar. He does a keto thing, and he just doesn't. He takes really good care of himself. So tough guy.
Well, yeah, it's like when you get with a chick and you've been with her for 6 or 7 months, and you're like, I don't gotta impress anybody anymore. So you just start eating like shit. Same thing.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I had a girlfriend when I started my campaign. We broke up during my campaign, but yeah, it was really funny because if I hadn't been on campaign when we broke up, I probably would have gotten in a lot better shape. But instead, I went further down the out of shape trail. So it was bad. I was just eating garbage for 6 months straight, and I gained a lot of weight. I had my face kind of broke out, and I was really, really tired all the time because I was working. When I first started that campaign, I was working Monday through Thursday, 4/12s, and then I would fly out every Thursday night or Friday morning to another state, and then I'd fly home every Sunday night, and then I'd work 4/12s, and I did that consistently for like 3 months. I never stopped, and it was a lot. Like the guys in the Mises Caucus were like, "Dude, are you okay? Like you don't look good." You don't look good right now.
That had to have been like amplified by just the fact of the stress of being on a freaking political campaign. Like, like stress on the body really does that kind of.
I had a lot in my brain too, dealing, like you said, dealing with the slanderous stuff all the time, man. It was like, God, what is going to be next? I don't even know. Like I would rack my brain about my past all the time, and be like, because I have a checkered past, a lot of Americans do, but I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh God, what could they find? What did I do? What happened in high school?
And I watched that midget porn.
I'm like, what was I doing in 1999? And so it was anxious. I was anxious a lot during it, very anxious, and I still feel those effects a little bit, now, but it's definitely subsided.
That kind of stuff just takes away from the what politics actually should be.
Well, slander and stuff like that, like it's really underrated how much attacks on your mental health do drain on your physical health. Mm-hmm. Like I can tell just from looking at you now comparing to the picture from your campaign, you're a lot thinner in the face and everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've lost probably 15 pounds.
I said he was fat. I didn't say
I gained a lot of weight. No, I have. I've lost a lot. My face has cleared up a lot. I've had some of my wrinkles have even gone away. It's been pretty wild, man, to see the transformation back to who I was prior to the campaign, because that campaign was a lot. It takes a lot, and I knew I was going to have to give myself up to that if I wanted to have any chance, because no one knew who I was. And so getting around to 20-something states and speaking in front of state delegations and conventions was the only way that I was able to garner that much support. And it's a battle of ideas, and I brought ideas that I thought were better ideas, but it definitely put a heavy toll on me. And I imagine that traveling around the country to these Liberty events to film a movie is going to be a lot less stressful, I hope.
Yeah, it'll be, you're not trying to win a race. Fun doing that.
I'm going to let everybody else do the talking,
It's going to be a celebration as well. We're going to be talking about our favorite thing. We're going to be talking about liberty, which is inherently energizing.
You get to build up $700 bar tabs all over the country. So
don't tell the Kickstarter.
Please don't tell. We're not.
That's a separate Kickstarter.
I've never in my life had a $700 bar tab. In fact, I think the highest bar tab I ever had was $150, and I still don't believe the bar tab was $150 because I left my card at the bar overnight, and when I came back, they're like, "Your bar tab was $150," and I was like, I think you're probably lying to me, but that's okay. Just pay it. Let me have my card back, So, that was one of the slanderous things that someone said they saw one of my bar tabs was over $700, and I'm like, first of all, first of all, I would have been dead. Period. Second of all, a lot of the drinks that I had, if I was, because we're libertarians and they usually have mixers the night before conventions or whatever. A lot of the drinks I had, like people would buy for me while I was there. You know what I mean? Like I didn't spend a lot of my own money on drinks per se. The majority of my money went to airfare, hotels, and food.
Well,
plain and simple.
Politics in general be less of that slanderous type stuff because with this, especially with the small type of stuff, I really think that for the case of the documentary, like just being able to have like maybe people come up and ask to like practical solutions to like current issues of like how a libertarian or liberty type it would solve issues.
I think it's a direct reflection of the society as a whole. There's so much negativity. It's not just with politics. There's no positivity coming out at all.
Mm-hmm. I think like people are really hungry to not just hear people shit on each other and like the different ideologies. Yeah.
Well, James talked about that, and I think he's right. We need to showcase the libertarian philosophy in a positive light because it is a positive, affirming thing. I mean, it's an entire ideology built around non-aggression, which is absolutely how you have a positive society, right, James?
Absolutely, and it produces prosperity, and it reduces our prices, and it gives us all these amazing goods to have at very cheap prices, and allows us to associate with whoever we want. And so many amazing things that make our life awesome, but too few libertarians point that aspect out.
I'd be really curious to hear like say we get more libertarians out there, like how would they deal say with countries that don't necessarily wouldn't want to subscribe to that idea, like someone dealing with like China or like Russia or like Saudi Arabia.
If they attacked us?
Well, not attacked necessarily like war, but like dealing with like the economics of like Saudi Arabia or
like
something
sanctions and stuff.
Some just countries that aren't gonna necessarily subscribe to those ideas.
Well, that's not technically it's not our problem. And the problem is that we've made it our problem for 100 years. That's one of the biggest problems in America is we think that we can go around and push our views on other countries, and we just we don't got to democratize everywhere.
Right.
We're the only political philosophy in the world that says we don't actually know how to run anything.
Right.
Yeah. We're the most humble political philosophy.
What is it? Accept the things I cannot change. Yeah. It's
which is most things.
Most things.
Yeah. We can't even tidy our rooms. So I don't know what gives us the idea that we think we can control other people's lives.
Did you just Jordan Peterson everybody?
That's
what I thought.
Too obvious?
That was pretty obvious. You Bellers go and clean your room now.
That's like
come back after you clean your room.
Saying, I don't know that I'm wise because I know I don't know. So.
Mr. Peterson, if you're watching, we'd love to have you in our documentary.
Yes.
Absolutely, Mr.
We'd love to have you on our podcast.
I don't think he's watching, but that would be cool.
That would be cool.
All right, we just do like an hour and a half minus the piss breaks. You guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, for real.
Plug your documentary one more time.
Yeah.
It's called Living in Liberty.
Living in Liberty. I cannot wait to bring some bitches over to Netflix and chill with that.
Yeah, for
and
real.
You can find it at James on Facebook at Living in Liberty Movie, or you can find it at our website livinginlibertymovie.com. We also have a Twitter that I think is living_in_liberty, but you can just put in Living in Liberty and find it. And the Kickstarter. That's the most important thing right now, because to make a good movie, you have to have funding, and neither of us are rich guys. We just have a really good vision that we think is going to be very well done on the screen. And so please give us your money. If you look us up, Living in Liberty documentary on the Kickstarter, you can find a rewards tier there that works for you. There's some really good rewards, a signed pressed version of the Blu-ray. There is a movie shirt, which is limited. I think there's only 35 of those. There's, you have the chance to be in it and talk about your experience with the libertarian philosophy. That's a little higher. And then obviously we're looking for executive producers. So yeah, please check the Kickstarter out. Give us your money if you think it's a worthy cause and something that you'd like to see and help us change the culture.
So you're not getting Koch brothers money.
No. Unfortunately, although I'm not above calling the Koch brothers and seeing if we can get some Koch brothers money. But whatever we got to do to further the cause of liberty, I'm going to do it.
Gotta get
we're
that Koch
gonna
money,
post
baby.
all those links, by the way, on the Facebook page, Big Bill Media on Facebook. Just be looking for them, and please go support these guys so we can get the free movement of ideas out there.
Definitely support them. We already have all the Soros money that funds our show.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the Zuckerberg money.
And the Zuck money. Absolutely. Yep. You guys go chase that Coke money. Other than that, thank you so much again for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Peace out. Bread and Circuses. Thank you all so much. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, for real.
Absolutely. Thank